Let's see. This is Jim Howard in Fort Worth, Texas. Today it is, I'm looking for the date. Oh, September 27th of 2023. It's 3:44 p.m. I just made a change this morning to OBS. I went in and changed the settings from .mkv type of file to .mp4, and then the audio stopped working, but the audio was still working. And I mean, but not when it went to saving to a file on using OBS. So I just went and changed that back to MKV and tested it, and it appears to be working. I found a site, Bluehost. All of a sudden, I don't know when, maybe I get a lot of emails, but I've been getting a thing from Bluehost. .com, I think it is, to sign up for domain names, and I don't know what all. I think what they do, is WordPress. I think they're working with, I think that's their big thing, I believe, to have a WordPress site. And I enjoyed for years having a WordPress site, not with them. With Bluehost, I signed up, apparently, years ago for a domain that I've never used, that I didn't know that I had. And I just, because I just had some problems, which I mentioned in a previous video or two about security problems. And so I've started looking at things more closely. And so I looked at Bluehost, and I only had the one domain with them. Never used it. Didn't know that I had it. I'm sure I did years ago. They were, I think, kind of smart in a way. Maybe not deliberately, but because I paid, a fairly small amount of money. Well, I think it was 100 and something, I believe, for a domain that was over a period of time, years. And so next year, it was going to come up for $100 to be renewed, I guess, over an X number of years again. And it would probably, if this hadn't happened, this security problem that I had, I probably wouldn't have. I'd have probably got. It would depend. I might have got hit with that. And what's that? But anyway, I went there and got into chat. I didn't have any problem getting into chat with them, and I said, I explained just like I did to you. Hey, I don't remember signing up for this, but I'm sure I did. I never used it. I totally forgot that I had it. I don't intend to use it. And the guy said, "Oh, when you renew next year, it's not going to be 100. It's only going to be 64." And I said, "I don't want to pay $64 for it. It's nothing that I want to use." So anyway, they went ahead and took care of that for me. I mean, to me, to get hit occasionally with something like $100, something coming out. Now, of course, that's a lot of money. I'm a poor man, so that's a lot of money to get hit with all of a sudden. That's why I would love to pay for like Amazon Prime and save a few dollars each month by paying, but I really can't afford to have $120 or whatever it is for that, and other things just pop up. It's better to have them, monthly fee. And former Secret Service official on why Biden's dog has bitten 11 people. Must be a Republican dog. Have they checked that out? A mafia boss who bragged to have killed enough people to fill a cemetery has been laid to rest. If I seem in a cheerful frame of mind or something, I am not. I've got some problems. Uh, uh, I'm not sure where I'm going to be living in a few months. We're undoubtedly going to be, my son, my grown son, has, I'm not sure what the diagnosis now, if it's schizophrenia or manic depressive or whatever it is, but he's been causing some problem. Well, he's been causing problems for years. Except there have been times that he has got on his medication and stayed on it for a long time. But then he has a relapse or whatever. And the apartment complex that we live in, we're happy here. My ex-wife has lived here 22 years, and then I've been here 12 years living. Now we moved in the same apartment together to save money. But we like this apartment complex. We like the people. We like the management. But management has had to put up with something that they shouldn't have to put up with. And I can see it puts them in a bind. And so it's going to put us in a, I don't know what kind of a situation it's going to put us in. I do not anticipate doing Howard's Notebook and living on the street. So maybe I'll try to do some good YouTube videos here, so at least it'll be at least you can remember me. Anyway, I've got that to work that I have to work on, and puts me under a lot of stress. That puts us all under a lot of stress. So what else? By the way, President Ronald Reagan, was really, really liked by Republicans. And I mean, it was sort of like a saint, I mean, they really, nowadays, the Republicans, the Trump group or whatever, I'm sure they hate him. I'm sure because they hate everybody. So I'm sure that Ronald Reagan is not their hero anymore. And because I think they probably broke with everybody in the past, and everybody who Trump doesn't like, and I don't think he likes very many people, except his hardcore people. I'd like to mention this, I guess. Anyway, Ronald Reagan was, even I was, of course I've always been a Democrat. Even I sort of, for a Republican, I thought Ronald Reagan was, not bad. I'm actually mistaken. I was mistaken. He was president after Carter, and he defeated Carter. Poor Carter, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was probably the smartest president that we've ever had. Now, I'm not sure how far you go back, was he as smart as, I don't know, Washington and Jefferson, or I don't know, but probably with his IQ and his education and everything, probably the smartest president that we ever had. But when he took office, he was, a Baptist, and still, I think, well, he's got Alzheimer's now, and his wife has Alzheimer's, and he's 99, but he's been a good man all his life. But when he was elected president, and moved from, let me see, hang on. when he went from Georgia, the state of Georgia, he took people, of course that was a mistake, I guess. He took people that were good people and people that, that he trusted and people that he knew, and he wasn't happy with Washington, D.C. I mean, before he got there, he didn't want to do business the way things were being done. So he went there and he took these people with him. And then he also, I understand, he wanted to know exactly what was going on and to make sure that everything was right, And he, the people that he took with him, they didn't know how Washington, D.C. worked. They didn't have any contacts. When you go to Washington, D.C., you actually need, the people that know how Congress works and how you get a bill passed, how you get things done. Who do you talk to get this taken care of or that? And he just was failing in all of that. And now, one thing that I believe, and it hasn't been, I put this proposal, I suggested this years ago, when this was all going on, in a way, after a little bit. Carter was president, and the situation in Iran went bad, and the terrorists there, or the people there, they had justifiable reasons to be mad at the United States for interfering in their country and doing all kinds of things that we should not have been doing, that the CIA does, and that kind of stuff. They had legitimate reasons. But they took over our embassy, and I think there was over 100 people there. Let's see. Wikipedia, I guess. There was over 100 people, and they took them captive. Now, an embassy is considered, by international law and around the world, if you have the Russian embassy in, Washington, D.C. or whatever, that is Russian territory. That's their embassy, and that's their territory. Our embassy in Russia, that's property of the United States of America. That's American property. That's whatever, that's the way the system works. So you can do things, So Iran took it over, our embassy, and their mobs of, wild people, went in there wild because they were mad at the United States. They had some justifiable reasons. I guess a lot of nations have justifiable reasons to be mad at us. But, right away when I saw that, okay, Iran wasn't going to get their people, apologize and get their people out of, these young people out of there. They were going to use them. I'm sure in the beginning probably they thought, oh, we better get these people out, or people will be breaking into our embassy in the United States. And, I'm sure, but then they saw, well, wait a minute, maybe we can, use this for a while. Then I guess they were afraid, well, okay, our young people it's, directing their attention away from us, and more at the Americans. So they, I guess, let it stand. And then, of course, at that point, I'm a nobody, I'm nobody now, never have been anybody. But then my opinion was, okay, that, Carter should explain to them, release, our people and correct what you've done and apologize, or else. But he didn't, well, I don't know what he did, and that wasn't announced, but he didn't do that. What what none of us knew was that he had actually set up a big operation to go in there with military force, you know, a raid to go in there and free the people, Americans. And everything went bad. You know, our military was not as good at those kind of operations as they should have been. And after they learned from they learned from that, and now we're after that. Things improved because we found out what we did wrong. You know, the helicopters wouldn't work in the sand. Just everything went wrong, and the thing failed. Now the next thing is the embassy is being held, and Ronald Reagan is running for president against Carter, and Carter's not going to win because he's just not going to win because of this situation and other situations that he just were not handled correctly. And like I said, he honestly probably I think you can go look it up. He's the smartest president we ever had. Okay, maybe he's down 2 or 3 now. I don't know. We know he's not. We know Trump's not ahead of him. So then, what I think, and I haven't heard anybody else say it. I think the Iranians wanted to have this come to a conclusion. You know, this thing that they didn't want it to. You know, the Ayatollah didn't want it to begin with. And these young, wild young Iranians go in there and cause, but then he kind of take advantage of it, and then he didn't also want the people to be mad at him. So anyway, Reagan is running for president, and of course he's going to win because of the Iranian situation, our embassy. And the Americans were mad, and ones with some kind of memory now. Trump's people, they're like, what, Night of the Living Dead or something. They don't know anything.
Who did it?
But,
That's the name of the game. Or that's the meaning of it.
Okay. I'm wondering if I'm going to have to stop. Okay. So I'm convinced that what happened is that this would be really unethical, almost treasonous. Anyway, well, the United States Congress, they pass things, like fuck Iran. We're not selling anything to them. We're not buying anything from them. We fucking hate them. I mean, it was like the American people were like, and but I'm convinced of what happened. But I've seen nothing about that, and I'm sure it happened. I just know it happened. But what do I know? That Reagan's party, the Republican Party, I mean, his people around him, I'm sure made a deal with the Ayatollah or with his, people that, hey, I'm running for president, and when I'm president, we'll sell you military stuff. Even the American people were, this is all, I'm sure, secret, we'll sell you stuff, and we'll do this, and we'll do that, and just hang on to these people that you've got. Now think how bad that is. Just hang on to them. And then, of course, the election takes place, and Carter loses big time. Embarrassing. I mean, it was just embarrassing. And when Reagan is getting ready to start his inauguration, swear the oath and all that kind of stuff. At some point before that, Iran releases all of the prisoners. And Americans were just, oh, Reagan is great, oh, wonderful, and Carter, what a dumbass, blah, blah, blah. And so Reagan takes office. Okay, now why do I believe that a deal was made? Which would be, as far as I'm concerned, that would be like treason, really. But because, anyway, the American people were still angry at Iran. They're still, well, not the Trump people, they're, like, they're not in this conversation or any kind of a conversation, even now. The the Congress of the United States, and I think it must have been just about unanimous. Fuck Iran, you know, uh, we will not sell them any military stuff at all. We won't do any business with them at all. And then there was also a thing down in South America. What was it, El Salvador? I forget where it was. Where there were the communist faction and people wanting, freedom and justice and all that kind of stuff. Really, I mean, they weren't supporters of Stalin or anything like that. Well, Stalin wasn't, But the public, the Congress and everything that, came in, that was the Congress decided absolutely no fucking deal with, about anything with Iran. And with the Contras down there, no giving them of guns. We don't want to get involved in that. We've been involved in, Vietnam and all this kind of stuff. We should have nothing to do with that. And so, Reagan is president of the United States, and the Republicans are really happy with him, and a lot of Democrats are, okay. So, the Secretary of, I don't know, the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, the Secretary, all these have to go testify before Congress. And when they're before Congress for, testifying, they're asking questions about this and that, the committee, are we doing any business with Iran at all? No. They're under oath, by the way. Are we doing business with, we're not selling them anything. No. And then the same thing with the Contra. Are we giving them money? Are we giving them guns? Is the CIA involved? But no. We know, it's whatever. Meantime, Reagan is president, and we're selling. Now, I'm not sure it was guns or anything, but we sold them trucks, military trucks, and then I think uniforms and other stuff. There was, and the money that Iran paid to the United States, Reagan and his people, they took that money and bought guns and things and sent, and some troops, or I don't know, undercover agents, special agents, make it whatever, but, we didn't send any. We didn't send the 101st Airborne Division or anything like that. And there was repeated people going before Congress for years. No, we're not doing any business with Iran. No way. And the Contras, no. And of course, there was talk, which I don't think we know now was true or untrue, that drugs were, the CIA was flying airplanes down with guns and maybe some people, and then on the planes coming back were bringing drugs, which were sold illegally, whatever. I don't think we know how much of that is true, but a lot of people believe, especially a lot of black people, because all of a sudden the amount of drug use and stuff was just skyrocketing among blacks and others, but especially among blacks, in the ghettos or the, areas. And so then eventually the shit hit the fan, and I forget what happened, but it came out that the United States was selling stuff to Iran, and that we were dealing, we were interfering and going, and that our people had. Of course, they don't think because it was Reagan. I don't think anybody was saying that's perjury. These Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Treasury, all these people. That's uh, you know, there wasn't any of that because people liked Ronald Reagan. Um, so then everything hit the fan, and Reagan, he survived the thing. Now, for me, one thing that happened is uh, the air traffic controllers decided it was time to go on strike. They're federal government employees. And they decided to go on strike. And then I'm a union person, by the way, all my life. I belonged to several unions, Boilermakers Union, uh, uh, let's see, can't remember the other one, auto worker, whatever. So, big union man, and my father was a union man all his life. Um, so, anyway, so I didn't know that much about the air traffic controllers, really. And then I thought, well, they're going on strike. I think those guys are paid pretty well. And then it showed in the newspaper, whatever. We had newspapers back then. Newspapers were things that were, never mind, you young whippersnappers. And then it gave their salary, and I was like, oh shit, don't go on strike. The American people, who are making, I don't know, let's see, maybe making $5 or $6 an hour. I don't remember what it was. Uh, they're not, they're not going to be thinking that you have any right to be going on strike when you're making $20 an hour or whatever it was. It was a lot of money for then. And sure enough, the American people did not support it, but the air traffic controllers thought, well, what are you going to do? You need us, and it takes actually months and years of training and everything to do that kind of work. And you need good people, smart people. Um, and I would, that would not be me. And I wouldn't be able to do that kind of stuff, I remember in 2 or 3 airplanes, they have to do, like I'd be, and they'd be like crashes on, so. So those people do need to be well paid. So Reagan, he enjoyed it so much, and the Republicans, they broke that union. He fired the air traffic controllers, a whole bunch of them. Then, of course, a bunch of them that were fired, well, they came back. But we barely had enough. And for years, Reagan left office eventually. And it was years and years before the air traffic control situation got back to where it should be. It took years. Because, these people, it took years, and hang on a second. Okay, I'm going to try to continue. So anyway, the Reagan took that, and the Republicans, they loved it. They smashed the union. Well, the air traffic controllers that were working and worked for years, they really, they were heroic in what they had to do. You're not supposed to be working overtime or really, and you're things like that. But they did a fantastic job, and also they rebuilt a new union, stronger than the union that they had, that owns a massive, in Washington D.C., gigantic building. It's their building, And after the 9/11 thing, I actually worked part-time. but it was full-time security. But at the Love Field, in the control tower after 9/11, we were working there and at other places. They were using contract whoever they could get until, and I could see too that the air traffic controllers, were, but nothing happened. There wasn't any. There may have been an accident or two or something, but it wasn't caused because of an air traffic controller falling asleep at the, or because of mistake. They held on all the way to Bush, I think it was. It was all the way to President Bush. Then finally, he knuckled over and hired. There were people who wanted to be air traffic controllers. In fact, my son went to air traffic control school, college, got a degree in that, and then they offered him a job as an air traffic controller. But at that point, Bush would not hire them, the people who normally you would get hired, and then you would go to in a small town someplace. Why they had it in a small town, I don't know. Someplace where there wasn't anything there. But you were hired, and you were going to go to their school, but they paid for your food, your motel room, because I don't think there was anything else there, and all that kind of stuff. But Bush was just so that he had to hire, these people who were going to be union employees, that he said, no, you're not getting union wages until you finish the school, and we're not paying for your food, we're not paying for this kind of stuff. So, my son, who went to, got a degree and from college in that, he actually went to contract doing sort of like air traffic control, except he was doing the weather, from a control tower, a different control tower. And also if pilots could call in by phone or call in by radio and do flight plans and that kind of stuff. And he was paid good money for that. It was contract, and he was paid good money for that. But anyway, so now when Reagan was president and this all came out, there were hearings to when Reagan was president, and the thing went going on with selling weapons and doing all that kind of stuff, congressional hearings, and the Congress, Democrats and Republicans. Of course, Republicans were like, it's Reagan, but still they were pissed because they'd been lied to, big time. So then it was investigated and found that the operations for all this was going on in the basement of the White House, and Reagan didn't know anything about it. Oh, there was an operation going on in the basement of the, all that kind of stuff. He didn't know anything about it. He didn't know, I had nothing to do with it. And then unlike Trump's people, all the people, that were doing that, no, the president didn't know anything about, it. So Reagan got off of, doing that. But then the next thing, of course, with Reagan that took place was, hang on a second, there's background noise and I'm not sure what's going to be heard or said. Okay, if I get close, maybe I can drown out what's the background noise. And so anyway, my mother, I'm not sure, I think I know she had Alzheimer's, and I think that was before Reagan got it. so I knew about Alzheimer's. Also working hospital security, I knew about Alzheimer's. So anyway, I, I was watching. I've got to settle. I've got to stop here for a second. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, my mother had Alzheimer's, and I think it was before Reagan. So anyway, President Reagan is doing his stuff, and he came out okay on all this stuff. I mean, actually, what he did with those two, you know, and having his people, and then also lying, but his people covered for him, which nobody would do for any other president, I don't think. Especially not Trump. Anyway, so Reagan, it was towards the end of his terms, and he'd be falling asleep, and then there were times where he wasn't. I don't think hadn't fallen asleep, and there'd be somebody like the vice president, there, and Pat, his wife, would have to punch the president, her husband, and say, "That's the vice president." I mean, stuff like that. He didn't know. He didn't know what was going on. He had Alzheimer's, coming and going, early stages maybe, but still, President of the United States shouldn't be dumb like Trump. I mean, God help us all. But I mean, you don't even need a little bit of, Alzheimer's or a little bit of anything. I mean, you should be in top. So, and Reagan wasn't. And people could see it. The news media. And news media, no, but there wasn't anything like, when Trump took office, or before I think he took office, there were news reports, there were doctors on, experts on television are saying, this guy is stupid, this guy is dangerous, this guy is, man, the Republicans, I think they love that. Supporters like, hey, yeah, that's good, let's put him in. But that wasn't that way with, with Reagan. He was loved by the people, especially Republicans, of course. And, of course, him, firing all those air traffic controllers, I mean, that was like, But I still didn't hate the guy. But it was like, that's wrong, he shouldn't have done that. But then also, the air traffic controllers that, should not have been, they should have understood, you're making X amount of money. Sure, you're working a lot and you have a lot of responsibilities, and there's a lot depending on every one of your decisions, everything. And, but still they got greedy, and, but anyway, so it was obvious that, Reagan, by the way, during Carter had I think a PhD in nuclear engineering or something. He also, during his time in the military, submarines, or whatever, he committed really a heroic duty. There was a leak or something or other, and he and some others, a few others, went in there, and they only could be in there for a very few minutes, turning a valve or doing something, and so he was, poor Carter. But anyway, so there was, everybody could, I think, tell. I mean, but people didn't want to, and I could understand it. Well, I can't understand that. This thing of, okay, we're all Americans. This is the United States of America. We live in different states or whatever, but the president's the president, and these people should be all acting responsibly on the national level, on the state level, and whatever. But it's gotten insane now because of well, before, but because of. Um, so anyway, I mean, it was obvious that he had problems, and that I think people were probably, does he have Alzheimer's? And of course, I'm there. My mother had. We lucked out. Our family lucked out. My mother did not. She was living in a mobile home, and she was a drinker all her life, and she always worked though, but not when she was old. But and she never really left the trailer. I had groceries going sent to her and that kind of, all that kind of stuff. And then at the last, my daughter Hillary moved in with her and took care of her there at the last. Thank God I didn't have to. But we were lucked out. A lot of families with people that have Alzheimer's, it's rough. It's rough on the Alzheimer's person, but they don't know it, and it's rough on the family. And so anyway, and I guess this is to the credit of the Senate and to the Democrats and to the Republicans. They decided that, of course, they didn't say we think he may have Alzheimer's. I don't think anybody mentioned that. They wouldn't have mentioned that, But there are some questions, and we want to go and make sure he's in good shape, and so we want to go over and have it. So the White House said, "Oh, sure, not today." The next day, not the next day, So I'm sure that they knew, the White House knew when this was when it was gonna hit, when it would be bad, what they could do. Maybe there's some injection the doctor can, whatever. So finally, and it was since it was Democrats, senators, I forget how many, 5, 6, 7, something like that, whatever it was, and they got the call. Okay, you can come now. And I don't think they said hurry up, And they went over, and then they came outside the White. They went and talked to him, and went out, and they stood on the outside, and the cameras went, and they said, "Oh, he was telling jokes, and just the way he's always been. He's in great shape." And the Democrats said, "Yeah, he's in great shape, yeah." And then they left. What they said to each other, and what they went home and told their wives or husbands or whatever, probably different. Well, okay, well, So, how long have I been talking? 42 minutes. I'll put a link to this, by the way, about Carter. Maybe I'll put a link to about Reagan, in case you want to read about it. And I'm not sure how much information Wikipedia will have in there, but in case you want to read about it, I'll put that also. So right now it's kind of quiet here, and that's good. Please, click the thumb up here. Please subscribe. Click the thumb up. If there's some links down below where you can click on. There's a thing down below you can make a donation. There's all kinds of stuff here. If you can do something, pitch in and help out. Thank you very much.